Howdy of you delicious people. I'm here today to review the first episode of Marvel's What If. So, really a lot of people might immediately just go in and ask, like, hey man, I'm not sure if I want to spend money on Disney Plus because, I'm not quite sure about their content yet, and maybe somebody might be on the fence. Who knows? And they might be asking, it's like, well, I'm kind of curious because this What If series, is it really good? Does it look fun? Blah, 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 blah. Should I invest? Well, you could probably go out of your way to not go into Disney Plus and watch this whatsoever. You could probably go onto two apps and watch everything for free. I have watched two apps reliably, one called C Movies, letter C Movies, and then I've also gone into an app called Fox HD Movies. The logo will say so, but not the title. I think the title says, is to be called, Play 1080p Movies. So, you could watch this regardless, without having to actually go into Disney Plus and having a subscription and whatever. So how do I feel about this first episode? Honestly, it kind of feels like a blatant copy and paste of Captain America: The First Avenger, and it also kind of feels like there's a spot in this episode that I'm like, this feels like Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Blah, blah, blah. Man, that's gonna help right in the beginning of this to be tongue-tied. So, there's a spot where if you were to watch Captain America's origin episode of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, it kind of feels like what they do there is kind of what they do here. But also, I guess there is an actual name for the thing that ends up going and attacking Agent Carter and the Red Skull at the end of this episode, I guess. And evidently there's some comic book history to it as well. So, going on to this episode, it feels like there's kind of a hot dogging thing going on with the Tesseract in this episode, I guess, that can make this seem different from other things. It is kind of goofy what they end up having eventually Steve Rogers eventually do in this show. Because really, they could have just booted that guy out and, it wouldn't have, they could have just said, oh, well, I guess Steve Rogers after all. It's meh, we could have just, kicked him out because what good is he? But, I don't know, I guess they, figured out something for him to do. But yeah, what ends up happening with Captain America just makes, Bucky Barnes just a less than character, and that just kind of feels just sad. It's yeah, so Bucky is just irrelevant in this movie, even much more so than he even was, so that kind of just sucks. But I find this episode to be fun. There's some fun things about it. It seems like they're playing around a lot with the lines from either the Agent Carter show or just Captain America: The First Avenger. They play around with a lot of those lines, so there's going to be a lot of familiar territories here. It honestly kind of feels like they end up, instead of having certain characters from Captain America: The First Avenger, it looks like they end up using some characters from the Agent Carter show in this episode to just kind of well, we couldn't get this guy, so let's get this guy from the show. They try to do some shifting and changing so that way we don't have to pay to have a voice actor sound like Tommy Lee Jones, and also we just kind of take some people that were already part of the MCU and kind of put them in here again. Luckily enough, we still have Stanley Tucci, who ends up playing the voice of Erskine, which I thought was really cool. Sadly enough, we don't have Chris Evans playing the voice of Chris Evans, which was that kind of just sucks. What, he didn't want to be involved in this? He wants to be Buzz Lightyear, he wants to do that, but Chris Evans does, but he doesn't want to do anything with What If. That kind of sucked. Uh, Maybe he was busy. I don't know. So teeing it up, like, there isn't much to tee up here. It's kind of a copy and paste of Captain America: The First Avenger, in all honesty. So if you've seen that movie, you honestly like it's a new coat of paint, in all honesty, with the story, with the exclusion of what they end up doing with Steve Rogers, and the way that this episode is just to kind of play out. Uh, but yeah, like, that's all that I really have for this is even teeing up thing, because it's basically like, just watch Captain America: First Avenger, and you'll basically get everything that you already know about this character, sadly enough, because it's a copy and paste. So I'm waiting for more interesting episodes that don't feel like a copy and paste. I hope we'll get that in the near future with any of these other episodes. Um, like, I want something drastically different. I don't want just like a slight change of something. Like, I want to have like a brand new kind of story, because like that's what I thought we were going to get here, but like we don't really. So with that said, let's just go into spoilers about this one. Let's go and crack out the double five, because it's otherwise that time again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this episode. Before we go into spoilers, uh, like, no offense to Agent Carter or Captain Carter, like, I like the fact that like some people might actually like this version better. Um, like, I just felt like we just slightly tweaked this whole world, and I was kind of like, okay, like, what was the real true change of things? Like, what was the end result is like we have certain characters that do end up getting uh like maybe killed, or maybe just like yeah. Let's just go into spoilers. So spoilers now. So what ends up happening here is the slight tweak of this world is we have Agent Carter, who ends up deciding to just kind of watch this experiment play out with all these guys who are just watching on, seeing this experiment being done. So, uh, here's one goofy thing. So Agent Carter didn't get her like penicillin. So, like, did that just make her stronger? I don't know. It seemed like Captain Carter was way stronger than like Steve Rogers. But then again, this is an animated like scenario where I'm sure they didn't actually want to have like Chris Evans do certain things that they do here, and plus also they can have a lot of fun with his character and do a lot of goofy things. So goofy meaning fun things. So what ends up happening is we have again uh, the one guy, the one Hydra agent, going and detonating an explosive in this movie. And so we have Agent Carter, who is to spot that this guy is to do this whole explosive. And so, uh, like, Erskine still dies in this movie, or in this episode. We have Captain America, who ends up going out and like trying to stop this would-be assassin, and that just leads to have Steve ending up getting shot. And so now we have both Colonel John Flynn and we have Howard Stark, who's trying to scramble because the whole like equipment to put this whole like thing together is now burning up. And so Agent Carter now runs into the thing because she's the only person left there now to have them do this experiment on while this place is burning down. And because Howard is not going to jump in there, and Howard's not going to be the super soldier because he's just a guy that pushes buttons, bizarrely, and we're going to be playing that role twice in this episode. So Agent Carter ends up going through the device, and she ends up changing into what is to eventually be Captain Carter. So, but the weird thing is, like, she doesn't have her USO tour. They basically just toss her the Captain Britain get-up, and they give her the Captain America shield, and so what eventually ends up happening is that Red Skull is to, of course, get the Tesseract from the exact same spot that he ends up getting the Tesseract in the Captain America, the first Avenger movie, like getting from that little secret spot, that tree design and whichever. So like that still happens the exact same way, but what eventually ends up happening is Captain Carter's very first mission is to eventually take down all these Hydra agents, and then eventually go and get Zola, and Zola, I guess, is to have the Tesseract with him. So, Agent Carter is to give Colonel John Flynn the Tesseract, and so Howard Stark takes the Tesseract and bizarrely builds a Iron Man suit with the Tesseract, which we find out is going to be for Steve Rogers, because Steve Rogers is still alive. They didn't, like, completely kill him off. I'm like, okay. So, weirdly, we have Steve Rogers, who's now in this Iron Man-like suit, that they end up calling him Hydra Stomper, which I'm like, that kind of just feels like a flimsy name, but whatever. Like, it's kind of fun. So we just see, like, consistent missions of Captain Carter, or because that's what they end up calling her. They don't call her Captain Britain. I guess they just, like, want to have, like, a name that seems to just kind of be from wherever. So Captain Carter and, like, Hydra Stomper just kind of do all these missions, taking down numerous people. Eventually leading them to do some parts from the actual Captain America, the First Avenger movie. So, what ends up happening is, here's the goofy thing. So, Zola was supposed to be on the train, and that's how they kind of collect Zola in the whole train thing. But they already had collected Zola in the early part of this film, so what are they going on that train to get? I'm confused now. There's no real asset of a thing to get with that train. I was a little confused about that whole spot there. But they end up copy and pasting and doing that whole train like mission that is to have Hydra Stomper himself go on and like open up a part of this train to get into the train, for us to find out that there is an explosive planted upon this train, where we are to naturally assume, oh no, so Steve Rogers is playing the Bucky role, where Steve Rogers is going to supposedly be dead, but eventually we'll find out later on in the episode that that the Hydra Stomper was found, because the Hydra Stomper has the Tesseract in it, for Red Skull to get back the Tesseract so that he can use it to his advantage. And we just see eventually the Hydra Stomper and Steve Rogers eventually just like kind of being like held in a room somewhere. We also had Agent Carter ending up freeing Bucky and all the guys from the 707 or whatever Bucky and his men were being held captive. Which I'm like, okay, so like that still technically happens, but like you would have thought that maybe Agent Carter would have taken out Red Skull because Red Skull would have still been at that spot, and but she didn't. Okay, but so I'm trying to think if there's any like important spots or there's anything that feels different from the Captain America the First Avenger movie that I need to mention here. Um, like there's some spots where like Agent Carter is to be played out like when she's to eventually become the super soldier. We have Colonel John Flynn who's just like I wanted a super soldier and I got a girl and all this kind of goofy stuff to where we have Howard Stark that's mentioning, hey, like you're not gonna need high heels anymore and all these like goofy weird things. And so eventually like we have this spot where Peggy and Steve are just kind of having like these drinks together, and like both of them are kind of talking about like how they feel about who they are, uh, and how like Agent Carter is mentioning it's like, well, yeah, like to a lot of people, I'm still just some girl and whatever, and like Steve is mentioning it's like, well, hey, I'm just some guy in a suit, like I'm just some guy who's just the Hydra Stomper. I'm not Steve Rogers to anybody. And like Peggy is just like, well, no, like you're a hero. You're my hero. And so we have this spot eventually where Steve and Carter are eventually going to kiss, and then Howard Stark breaks in and like, hey, like, hey guys, what's going on? Like, I thought we were gonna get a spot about like fondue or whatever, but we didn't. So that kind of sucked. Like I'm like, man, here is one spot that they could have actually said like, hey, do you guys want any fondue? But no, like Howard Stark is basically just like butting in because I guess you can't have like kissing here because maybe this is rated PG or whatever. So Howard is to mention like, oh yeah, like just go on and do whatever you guys were doing, like pretend I'm not even here, like so. Uh, so eventually we end up pushing on to have Agent Carter now having to fight out the Red Skull and make her way to going to his headquarters, taking him out, because we end up finding out that since the Red Skull has the Tesseract again, he is opening up this wormhole to eventually seek out this villain. God, where is it? Called Shuma Gorath or Shuma Gorath, which I guess is a part of Marvel's comic books. So all of a sudden we have Red Skull who's opening up this portal to have Ashuma come out, Ashuma Gorath or Gorath. I want to say it's Gorath because it's probably going to be pronounced the other way. So Ashuma comes out of this portal and has his tentacles going and grabbing onto the Red Skull. And so eventually Captain Carter, which I just want to call Captain Britain. I really just do. Like, because this is a really impressive Captain Britain. Like, the whole spot where, like, Agent Carter or Captain Carter was taking out, like, all the Hydra agents and getting to Zola, like, that part was really cool. I really enjoyed that spot where, like, she's just kind of, like, ramming through these cars and, like, flipping, like, motorcycles over. Like, that was a really cool spot. I really liked that. And so we get to trickle through Hydra's base or Red Skull's base to eventually have Bucky and his guys going and retrieving Steve Rogers and retrieving the Hydra Stomper. And so Steve is going to try to still use the Hydra Stomper even though like the Tesseract isn't like powering up this thing. So like whatever's left in the tank is whatever like Steve is gonna use. So, and we have this one spot here where they make fun of the like you can't do this all day kind of thing, which is kind of like Captain America's moniker of like, I can do this all day. Get to me. Try to come after me. Uh, so yeah, so we have these like tentacles all coming out from Ashuma. So we have at some point that like Ashuma goes and grabs Red Skull and just crushes him and kills him. I'm like, so that's how they just kind of write him out in this world. So who's gonna be watching over the Infinity Stone? No one. Like, is the Watcher just gonna watch over it? Like, cause shouldn't they like? Isn't this gonna be retconned then, or who's gonna watch over the thing? Does it really matter? I don't know. So, because I guess they actually killed Red Skull in this thing. So what ends up happening is Steve makes his way to where Ashuma is and is to just kind of like blast it a tiny bit. But I'm like, man, like Hydra Stomper just kind of like he's strong, but like it's just so weak. Like there's not like much of like a tool to his arsenal. I would have thought like here's what would have been really cool if they would have played this out. So it would have been really cool if like Steve just like sacrificed himself, like if he would have still been alive anyways, and then he would have just to have it like double take where like they could have like exploded this whole thing with the Hydra Stomper. They could have had just like them go and like nuke this thing, because like when looking at it, like the Hydra Stomper could have still had some like battery thing and they could have killed it. I don't know. They could have bombed it. I don't know. Anyways, so but what ends up happening is Howard is just like pushing buttons, but he doesn't know because what he's doing really, because he can't speak German. And like they could have got that one guy who was like in the Dum Dum Dugan's like group, the one guy who could speak German that was speaking that knows like German because of that one tank like moment. They could have had that one guy come over there and be like, hey, I know German, and like he could have helped Howard Stark out and shut this whole thing off. But like again, this is the whole like Captain America the First Avenger thing where I gotta put in the water kind of thing. So what ends up happening is Captain Carter ends up pushing this thing, the Shuma Garath, Garath, she ends up pushing it in back into where it came from. And so Agent Carter in this thing just gets put in there, and that's when we kind of have like the trading places of like Steve is mentioning to like Carter about the whole like dance thing that they're gonna like they're still gonna go on and have a dance like Saturday and all that stuff. It's kind of like the same exchange, similar to what happened in the end of Captain America First Avengers, or First Avenger. And so like, but we also like play around a lot more with the whole dance thing, where when eventually Captain Carter and Hydra Stomper are like finally or first teaming up with one another, and like Captain Carter is like taking down all these tanks and all these kinds of things, and Hydra Stomper arrives. We have like Steve Rogers mentioning that he had Howard give him some new dancing shoes, and so Agent Carter is like, great, let's dance. Like, I like those whole play of like the whole play around thing that they do with these spots here. Like, some of this line delivery is fun, but it just also just feels like a copy and paste. But it's fun. But it's a copy and paste. But it's fun. Like, there's this back and forth of me where it's like justifying that this is good, but otherwise just wanting to crap on it too. But anyways, so we end up having Carter pushing this thing back, and so we just end up having this Avengers moment, or this Avengers movie moment, where Agent Carter is to eventually come out of the Tesseract years later with both Nick Fury and both like Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. I'm like, good. So like most of the people in here, like most of them are actually doing the voices. Like every once in a while, you'll just not get like one character that I guess just didn't want to be involved, I guess, in this project. But again, they could probably just be really busy. So, but yeah, so like that's just the tail end of it all, where like Agent Carter comes back from the Tesseract, and I guess Loki isn't gonna like follow her right after that. uh, but yeah, so like that's how this kind of just plays out. That like, hey, Agent or Captain Carter, um, you're in year XYZ, whenever the heck the first Avenger movie was to be out. So yeah, like that's how this episode just kind of plays out. Like there's some fun things, but also copy and paste. So with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Like I hope I covered everything, but like I think in a roundabout way I kind of covered bits and pieces and whatever. Like I kind of didn't have to do this. I didn't want to do this one fluid motion. I just kind of wanted to like whatever comes up kind of thing. So it'll be cool to see what happens in other episodes, but like I'm not jazzed about this show because of this first episode. I'm just kind of like no offense, like I liked what they did with Captain Carter. That was like that thing was fun. Like that sounds awful. That character was fun. Um, it was just like okay, but like they like I didn't like how it felt like we didn't do anything new. We didn't do anything that felt new enough to me. Um, and so that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for like a fresh concept, a thing that has to like drastically change this world, and like that didn't felt like it did that for me. So I want a drastic shift. Like man, if we could get a story where uh like a lot of people would probably like go on and be like, yeah, I want this to happen in this show. Like there could be so many cool different like avenues that they can go into. Uh, like what if Frank Castle was War Machine? Like they could go through any number of kind of like because like comic books have already kind of done stuff. There is a ton of like what if stories out there. I think they want to try to do something that seems original compared to any of the other comic books. But like I think that this was like a cool thing to do, but like it was just a poor execution of it. But yeah, but I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.